Godzilla, King of the Monsters, hitting the big screen this week, and I've enjoyed these movies. So, in my excitement for the new Godzilla coming out, time to dive back into and spoiler talk Godzilla 2014. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk for Godzilla 2014. I really did enjoy this movie, and in this week leading up to Godzilla King of the Monsters, I feel like I haven't really done a proper review of this movie since it came out before I did this channel. So I'm super excited to dive into this movie, give it a proper review in my excitement for the new one. So as you can tell, I like this movie, and I'm kicking it off by giving it a B+. It doesn't hit that A range quite for me, but B+ is that range where it's like, oh yeah, I enjoy the movie. I mean, I bought it on Blu-ray, so I own it, and I've watched it multiple times since I owned it. I just watched it last night so I could do this review. So like, it's a fun movie, and every time I pop it in and every time I watch it, I really do thoroughly enjoy it. I do like the cast. I think Bryan Cranston, though, is my favorite. I love that dude in this movie.
What's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And I have a right to know!
I really wish him and his crazy conspiracy theory mind and all that stuff could have made it through the rest of this movie. It's kind of sad his character dies, like, right at the very beginning. But I liked what he brought to it in the beginning and how he led our lead character forward into the midst of all this monster hunt. And so it was kind of cool how they used him, but I really would have liked to have seen more of him. Pretty smart, though, how he was tracking the echolocation before he even knew he was tracking the echolocation. Then he figured out he was tracking the echolocation. He was just a super smart character. Had he had survived, I am curious how he could have helped. Ken Watanabe is my other favorite cast member in this movie. He's got the most epic line in the entire freaking movie.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Yeah, that line. I just really liked him. I mean, how awesome is it that Godzilla is arriving in Hawaii, and Ken Watanabe doesn't go hide somewhere. No. What does he do? He runs up to the deck of the boat. I must see him. And he watches as Godzilla arrives. I gotta say, very polite of Godzilla to not bowl over the ship, but to go under the ship. I mean, I know he's a smart monster, and his job is to restore balance. But I mean, he does step on a lot of people and vehicles when he's walking through Hawaii. But very polite, though, of him to go under the ship. And then you have Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen popping up in this movie. It's so bad because, like, I have the hardest time getting Age of Ultron out of my head, where those two played brother and sister. And, you know, because I'm a superhero guy, comic book movie guy, it's like that's the thing that leaves the strongest imprint on my mind, you know, versus Godzilla. And so here I am watching this movie, like, I'm watching it last night. And first off, it's funny because Elizabeth Olsen goes on the screen, and you know what my brain did? It automatically put her Sokovian accent there. Like, it automatically did the accent, and I
can handle these.
You know, I'm 12 minutes older than you.
Go.
No, she's not talking in an accent. Stop it, Durbin. She's not talking in an accent. So after a while, it's like I'm finally hearing her normal speech without the accent. Same for him, but, you know, I don't know. I guess she's in more of the Marvel movies than he is, so you hear more of her accent than his. So I never really think of, you know, Ford as having that accent. But it's only a brief, like, awkward moment where you see them, like, lovey-dovey and kissing each other and happy married with the image of them as brother and sister in Marvel because, you know, they're only together, like, at the beginning of the movie and at the very end of the movie. And honestly, it's one of the things in this movie that makes me very sad because you have Ford. You know, he's finally coming home, and he finally gets to be with his wife and his kid after, you know, serving. And so he comes home, and his son says, "Are you going to be here tomorrow? Like, I haven't seen you in so long. Will you be here when I wake up?" And Ford's like, "Yes, of course." And then his dad, Bryan Cranston, gets arrested in Japan, and he's got to leave that night, so he's not even there the next morning for his son, as far as we know. So to me, that was very, very depressing, but at least it ended happy for that family, where I feel like the son gets to be with his father and all that. So that it's kind of nice that it ends happy, but man, I always kind of feel that moment, like, you know, the moment Ford made that promise. Yeah, I'll be here in the morning. Like, when I was watching the movie the first time, I had a strong feeling he wasn't gonna be there in the morning. But the other thing that I love about this movie is the monsters themselves. But what's the coolest thing about the monsters themselves is the sound effects. I love the sounds that the Mutos make. I love the sound of Godzilla's roar. However they did that mix, whatever they used to create those sounds, and the way they used the sounds throughout the movie was just so smart and so well done. Like the whole train scene where they're on the bridge and you have Ford and he's laying down on the ground on like in the tracks, like trying not to be seen by the Muto, and as the Muto's like going under the bridge and it's making all those noises. Like that whole segment is so cool. So like one of my favorite things about this movie is the sound effects of the monsters. Plus, I think the monsters visually look really cool too. I think my favorite scene though is the first time Godzilla appears and we're at that airport in Hawaii and there's that massive explosion in the airport and the camera is panning over and then you see Godzilla's feet coming down. But the coolest part for me is everybody's screaming at the explosion. Everybody's screaming at the other monster. But when Godzilla's foot comes down and it goes boom, it's like suddenly there's a silence. Everybody's just like, what is that? And I love that slow camera pan up where we get our first official look at Godzilla. So much of that to me is well done. For me, the biggest negative though is how little Godzilla is in this movie. So he has that epic appearance, you know, when he arrives at Hawaii, he's walking through the streets and then that epic first reveal. So that's really cool. But then in that moment, like he roars at the monster, he roars at the Muto, and then he goes to fight it and we cut away. And so we then have Ford's son watching the TV, and then you kind of see a little bit of the fight on the TV, but the camera doesn't stay on the TV screen, so we didn't get to see much of that fight. And then for the rest of it, yeah, the one Muto's flying across the ocean to the United States, and then Godzilla's swimming, so yeah, story-wise, it makes sense why we don't see Godzilla so much, but it's a Godzilla movie. At the very least, that airport fight, I would have liked it if they didn't cut away and we got to watch him fight the flying Muto. So we really got to see how that fight went down. So then when he fights the female Muto that is much bigger and can't fly, it would have been cooler to have added that element after seeing how he fights the thing with wings. So that was kind of my disappointment. And even in the San Francisco fight, I feel like there's a lot of places where the fight will start and then it cuts away to what the people are doing. Now look, I get it. You need the people. The people are telling the story. The people are giving us the emotion of what's going on. It's important to have the human actors there, but the movie's called Godzilla. Give me more Godzilla. Quit cutting away from the stuff. You've already given me enough people that I get the story, so come on.
Let them fight.
Gosh, but finally when we get to see that fight and Godzilla's back lights up for the first time and he breathes that fire, oh my gosh. It was just so incredibly epic. But what an epic scene when Godzilla fights the female Muto and blows fire down its throat and rips off its head and then does that victorious roar. I mean, there was just so much about this movie to like. So I definitely have my negatives with it, and the biggest negative is how little Godzilla we actually have in a Godzilla movie. And then when we finally do get him and the fight is happening between him and the Mutos, we keep cutting away to see what the people are doing. But I feel like they must have taken that note, because when we got into Kong Skull Island, like we had definitely way more Kong. You got to see more of the giant monster fights. And I'm really thinking in this Godzilla King of the Monsters, it really looks like we're gonna get a lot of really cool monster fights. But there it is, B+. I think Godzilla 2014 is a solid movie. Watching it again last night for I don't know how many times I've seen it now, I was still entertained by it from the very beginning to the very end. I think it's an incredibly enjoyable movie, very entertaining. I love it, and I'm very excited to see Godzilla, King of the Monsters. What did you think of this Godzilla movie, and are you excited for the King of the Monsters? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or my Godzilla King of the Monsters review. Hit that bell so you're notified the moment that drops. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.